pretty much born into Scientology. He went from everybody's really cool dad to now they're like weird uncle. And then when I tell that to people, they're like, what? I started getting into this rabbit hole. I know I kind of hit you with this today about giants. Described these huge creatures in the mountains. The US military encountered a giant. It's very possible that somebody fabricated this, a story about how the US, or specifically German scientists, found the grave of Gilgamesh. I think it would be almost impossible for there to be something like Bigfoot, Loch Ness.
Well, do you believe in dinosaurs?
Dreams get planted. Money talks loud, got success enchanted. Skyscrapers tall, ambition never slanted. Subway beats, rhythm city granite. From Brooklyn to Bronx,
Amen. We're back, like cooked crack. Dude, this is good. This is good. Welcome back to Respectfully Disrespectful. We're flying solo again for the fourth week in a row. Feels like. Well. We got our boy, our security guard on the left over here. Slowly getting used to him. He used to scare the shit out of me. Well, let's see. Before we go on, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the little bell. Because I want you to know when Daddy drops a video. You understand? When a new Bible verse comes out, you gotta be the first to know. You gotta follow on. Okay? How's your week been, Igor?
Amazing. Very productive.
Very good. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
That's what we like to hear. I've had a good week. No teeth pain. So I'm starting to, I have a dentist appointment next week on Monday. And now that I've had a good week with no tooth pain, I'm slowly like, do I need to go?
Don't.
I'm like, do I really need to go?
Don't.
Do I wait till it hurts again to the point where I could barely function? Do I do that? It's honestly been a crazy week. So I think the first thing we should start with is we posted a TikTok, specifically about the Linkin Park thing that we talked about last week, or week before, honestly. I don't remember anymore. And it kind of went crazy. Just to bring everyone up to speed, I essentially said the Linkin Park hate made no sense to me. When they announced Emily as the lead singer and people were like pissed off about it, I'm like, well, what do you want them to do? You want them to just stop making music because of what happened? You want them to make another band? You want them to not perform? It made no sense to me. Obviously, she has a slightly different sound. So when she was singing Chester's songs, people were like, look, it sounds like shit. They're not the same person. It's gonna sound different. Can you imagine how insulting it would be if they grabbed a person who sounds exactly like Chester just so they could perform and have a person who sounds like Chester? Like, that's crazy. It's not a fair comparison. They didn't take her to replace Chester. They took her as a new lead singer for new projects. And people should judge the new projects. And the new album that they came out with was good. I thought it was a good album. And Linkin Park fans lost their mind. Because some of them took it as a Chester replacement. Some of them just started absolutely hating on her. I'm talking about Emily Armstrong. So we decided to post a TikTok, and I'll play it in the video just so everybody's caught up. And what are we currently at with the video?
Like 45,000 views.
So we got about a little under 50,000 views, a little under 1,000 comments, which, I'm a famous person. I'm used to this kind of thing, but some people might not handle it. And I'm not going to lie. When I first heard some people hating on me, sitting here with my Fanta can, it kind of hurt my feelings. But it's okay. This is what the business looks like. You got to get through it. You got to be tough. And I just want to address some of the things that people were talking about in the comments, because I think a lot of people completely missed what I was talking about. And some people just highlighted exactly what the problem is with the fan base. I've actually seen two issues that everybody highlights regarding Emily. Not even the music part, but just her personally. So I want to get the easy one out of the way. It was her support of Danny Masterson, who was... well, he is an actor. I don't really know what the case with him is right now, but he was an actor. He was on That 70s Show, and a few years back, he got caught with some stuff, and there was a whole trial. He essentially got convicted for grape. Those of you who have an imagination understand what I'm talking about. They were friends, and she appeared at his court hearing. To what a lot of people are showing hate to her because she was there, and she said that she was there to support a friend. She later on came out and said that she regrets being there and that she supports any woman coming forward with these kind of allegations and is against all of this stuff. So it's really strange to me that people are so quick to jump on the fact that she was there. At the time, it was a court hearing, meaning nobody was convicted yet. If she was there for a friend and her friend was telling her, or what other sources were telling her, that this is not true and that he needs support in the courtroom, like any other friend, she came to support him. After he got convicted, she regret being there, which I feel like is a very human thing to do. If any of my friends who I feel like I know got convicted, or not convicted, but got accused of something, you know, my initial thing would be to talk to them to find out if this is true. And if they tell me it's not, then I'm going to support them. So it was a really strange thing that everybody jumped on her, but then completely missed the fact that she apologized for it. But that's one of the ridiculous things I saw. The other thing that was really bizarre was people connecting her to Scientology. So if anybody doesn't know, Emily Armstrong was pretty much born into Scientology. Her parents are both really deep into Scientology. I mean, you could keep digging and digging, and you're going to find her mom part of like different sections of Scientology who actually perform, you know, tasks that to get people into Scientology. So you're essentially upset that somebody is born into a religion. Now, if you want to call it a cult, you can call it a cult. Don't get me wrong. I don't get the whole Scientology thing. I think it's creepy. But it's really bizarre to me that somebody who was born into it, just like anybody else who can be born into Christianity, Judaism, as a kid, you're obviously, you know, indoctrinated into that whole thing. You go to meetings, you talk to people, you read books, you're told that this is what, you know, your life is supposed to be like, you know. And then I know she hasn't officially, I think, came out, say us anything about Scientology. Emily is openly gay. She's talked about this many times, and Scientology is against LGBT. So, you know, make of that what you will. But my thing is, if you're going to hate on her for being part of Scientology, I really never want to see you watch a Tom Cruise movie or anybody else who is part of Scientology, because there's a lot of actors who are in it, a lot of influential people. And the last thing I always hear about this is somebody being like, oh, screw this person because they're in Scientology. Listen, if somebody is born into it, I'm not going to blame them. If somebody makes the conscious decision to go into something after they have all the facts and all that stuff, I might look at them a little bit different, but I'm not going to blame them for joining something that they think is a religion. And it might be, right? Like, who am I to say? But I think those two things were really ridiculous, and they were also completely away of what the point I was making. I wasn't talking about her as a person. I was talking about her and the decision that was made by Mike and probably Han and whoever else is running the band. Naturally, we had a lot of people come out who are just veteran Linkin Park fans, you know. And I know I'm sounding condescending, but that's because I feel like somebody who's been a fan of Linkin Park for a very long time, you know, I've listened to, I mean, I was a kid when they were coming out, but I was really into like their albums, you know, Hybrid Theory, probably one of the, you know, Meteora. I think everybody has Linkin Park songs that they really love, even if you're not a fan of the band. And, you know, the way I looked at it was, I remember when Chester was still here and they were releasing albums, and all of the hardcore fans were complaining about them being very pop. No, everybody wanted them to go back to the old Linkin Park, the new metal, grungy, punk rock, like rock and roll Linkin Park, whatever subgenre you want to throw at it. Everybody was complaining about the new stuff. And that's the last album they made, One More Light, in 2017. People absolutely hated it. A lot of people hated it. A lot of Linkin Park fans hated it. But of course, now all these people in the comments are coming out like they were loving every single thing that Chester was putting out, even though that's not true. And this happens with every single fan base. You're going to reminisce, you're going to get into your little nostalgia mode and think that, you know, everything was so great. You know, it's tragic what happened, but let's not pretend that Linkin Park was making everybody happy even when Chester was still there. So then you have what happened. And then I saw a couple people, you know, we're going to pull up some some comments because I really want to get to some of these. One person here says, should have made a new band for one. It's not Linkin Park anymore. And two, probably the biggest point, is the fact that she's involved with Scientology. She was even in the court defending Danny Masterson. And all she's done is ignore people's requests to it, which isn't a good look. The fact that none of the band will address this is the issue, and why so many are mad, not just because of a new singer. Again, when Emily was just announced, and I think they were posting videos of her singing the old songs, I was one of the people who, I was telling my friends, I'm like, I don't like the way she sounds singing old Linkin Park songs. I didn't feel like she, you know, those songs seemed like they were made for Chester, his range, his singing style. And then obviously telling somebody else to do the same thing or put their spin on it, it's going to sound weird. So I didn't like it. But I wasn't reading online that people were hating her because of Scientology. I was seeing fans getting really pissed off that they announced a new singer, which I also think was very expected. But again, just really bizarre things that I don't think really, you know, make the point that the person was trying to make. I talked about in the video how you shouldn't, like, what did you expect them to make a new band? And the amount of people that said yes was absolutely insane. Can you imagine you making a company or you making a brand or you making a band, getting people into that band, you guys blow up, something God forbid happens, everybody leaves, but you, the founder, the person who owns this thing, is still around, and you got to keep going forward, and you have people telling you, well, you should just make a new thing. I don't know. We got another one here. I've never been a big band guy, but I've noticed since I was in high school, Linkin Park fans hate Linkin Park and just complain about everything they do. This is very true. I was pretty much a teenager when they started coming out with their new stuff. I think, I don't know, around 2012, 2017, 2018. And I feel like all I heard was hate from Linkin Park fans. Everybody was like, oh, this is the new stuff. You guys are now a pop band. You're doing this. And Mike Shinoda was addressing this kind of stuff too. You know, he was talking about the band needing to evolve, new sound and stuff like that. And what, you're going to tell that guy that he shouldn't be doing that he shouldn't think about things like that? Like, come on. We got one more here. I get some of the criticism, but they just hate her because she's not Chester. I guarantee you any amount of money they would say the same thing for any other artist. Which, I mean, is probably true. And then we got another one here. Linkin Park is Mike's band. That's another thing a lot of these people, I think, missed. For being such a veteran Linkin Park fans, nobody seemed to know that Mike Shinoda is the one who made the band. And don't get me wrong, again, I know that a lot of this sounds like disrespect to Chester. It's really not. It's more of in defense of Mike's decision and the band's decision. Again, not a representative of the band. I don't know these people. I don't know them personally. I'm only going to judge from the point of view of music and the content they release. And a lot of the songs that this album that they just released came out with, it sounded like a lot of their old stuff. Not all of it was very poppy. And there was that one, I forgot what it's called, Two-Fake or something like that, Two-Faced. And a lot of people in the comments were like, "Oh, this sounds like One Step Closer." So it's like, what do you guys want? Like, for real? Because asking them to make a new band is stupid. Asking them to point out things from her personal life are also stupid. Can you imagine if everybody had a magnifying glass to your life and then picking out little things and then preventing you from having good opportunities for yourself? It's absolutely ridiculous. again, I don't know Emily. She might be a great person. She might be a horrible person. I'm just gonna judge based off of the stuff that's released. And so far, the points that everybody was making didn't rub me fancy. I think it did nothing for me. And, I was thinking of replying to it, but it was such a shit show in the comments. I mean, we're like almost at 1,000 comments, right?
It's like 750 or something like that right now.
Yeah, it's just impossible. There was that one guy who made a video responding to me.
That was great.
And I honestly, I'm not going to lie, I stopped watching after like a few seconds. The guy was like, what did we expect to make the new band? Freddie Mercury, Queen didn't go on after Freddie Mercury. Bro, you can make so many examples of bands that continued after, whoever left or God forbid something happened to them. And then bands who stopped. You know what I mean? Pretty sure Audioslave stopped after Chris Cornell's death. Pretty sure. I don't know. 3 Days Grace, Adam Gontier left, and they kept going. They brought a new singer, and guess what? The same thing happened. People started hating because this guy doesn't have the vocal range of Adam, and then they were playing the old songs, the Animal I've Become and I Hate Everything About You, and they were just complaining about this new guy. So look, I guess the moral of the story is you can't make everybody happy, and you shouldn't. And for anybody out there who's a true Linkin Park fan, you should at least be happy that they're together again, they're making music again, and they're moving forward. Because if this was hard on fans that Chester left, imagine what it was like for people who were seeing them every day, who were making art with him. And if they have decided to make this new transition, if you don't like it, don't listen to it. I don't understand what you're doing to Linkin Park if you're just sitting there and absolutely shitting on them everywhere you go. It makes no sense. That's what I gotta say with my bottle of brandy. Jesus Christ. I didn't want that to go on for long, but I got kind of spicy. Another thing this week that I saw, which was so horrible. So Will Smith, I think this week released the song Pretty Girls. And a while back, he did like a freestyle that I saw, which was, it was just really cringy. I don't know. Will Smith, to me, he went from everybody's really cool dad to now they're like weird uncle, I feel. I don't know what it is. I'm not even talking about the slap with Chris Rock. But at some point, he just became like really cringy to me. And I know he was always this like little goofball. Like he wasn't this rapper or whatever. Don't get me wrong. But Will Smith had like a way of conducting himself that was kind of cool. So he released Pretty Girls. Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Can you play it?
Of course.
Cool. Now he looks like a fat uncle.
I like pretty girls. I love pretty girls. I like pretty girls.
Like, dude, this is, it's just bad.
I love pretty girls. You don't gotta wait in line tonight. You too fine for the line tonight. 5 plus 5, you a dime tonight. It's a full house, better play your cards right. I'ma post your pick if you pose. Make one phone call, you involved.
How many views does this have?
Shoulders, knees, toes. Hold up.
Too many.
Yeah, knowing Will Smith is probably slapping him right now. Oh, that was actually
I'll change your life if you let like pretty girl.
As soon as it loads.
yeah, dude. Honestly,
500,000.
where do you see that?
Right here.
Oh, so this video has 500,000 views in 2 days, which, you know what? For Will Smith, I expected more. They're not showing you the dislike ratio, but I don't know. Trash, in my opinion. Will Smith became everybody's uncle at this point. An uncle that I would be embarrassed to bring around anybody. I don't know what happened. He just got really old at some point, and I don't think he's that old, but Will Smith. Yeah, man. Honestly, other than that, things have been pretty good. Staying busy. Summer is just weird, man. It's not kicking in, I feel. We're just getting rain. And it's cold. It's like decently cold.
Yeah, halfway through June, and I can easily walk around with a sweater on.
Yeah, it's really Jesus Christ, almost broke my neck. Yeah, it's I don't know. I think this is what growing up is. Just everything sucks. Everything sucks. I'm gonna be. What's today's date? Today's the 15th, dude. In a little more 12 days, I'm gonna be 27. 27. You understand that? 3 more, and
No,
it's
I
done.
don't.
3 more years, it's done. I'm done. 30, dude. Becoming 30 is just like, when I hit 25, I was like, well, this is the half point. You're pretty much halfway done. And then when I tell that to people, they're like, what? Especially people who are like 35. I'm like, well, you're on your way out. You know what I mean?
10 more to go.
What's it called? Dude, I started getting into this rabbit hole. I know I kind of hit you with this today about giants. A while back, I was talking to, I'm not gonna say who this was, but I was talking to somebody, and they would constantly like bring up giants. Now, to me, and I think most people, when they hear giants, it's just fiction. It's like cartoons, magical movies, and stuff. You know what I
The
mean?
Bible.
The Bible. There's a lot of giants in the Bible.
Not a lot, but giants are mentioned in the Bible.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know about Quran or Torah, but I'm pretty 99.9% sure there was a bit with a giant.
What does Scientology say about giants?
How
We don't
how
support.
am I supposed to know?
We don't support giants. So I started, digging deep into giants. So I was like, where did this come from? Because a lot of the text, and I mean, giants in general, like you said, Bible. So this was, giants are mentioned thousands and thousands of years ago, especially if you're going to literature. They were mentioned a long time ago. So then I started thinking, like, where does this take us? What do we do with this giants thing? Right here, you pulled it up. What do we got? Yes, the Bible mentions giants, mostly notable by Nephilim, right? Is that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah, in Genesis, and other groups like the Anakim and Number 13. I don't. There's a group called Numbers 13. These giants are described as being a great size and strength, with some even suggesting they were superhuman in nature. Yes, so I started digging deep on giants, and I ran into some information about Native Americans. There was a Native American tribe that described these huge creatures in the mountains. They were red hair. They had red hair. I think giant teeth, and they were cannibals. And they were talking about how they would sometimes come from the mountain, and they would try to, destroy villages. So the very last one that they destroyed, they somehow locked him in the cave and burned him. It was a specific tribe in Nevada, right? So then you start digging, and more tribes were mentioning giants. And they all described them in a very similar way. They were huge, obviously red-haired, cannibals, and were dangerous. This was going across many tribes all over the U.S., okay? Which is possible, right? Word can travel. I get that. But then I started thinking, well, I remember there was a story that I read a long time ago about, I don't know if you ever heard this, but there was that story how the U.S. military encountered a giant in Afghanistan. Have you heard about that?
I feel like I have, but I'm not sure about the details. But a lot of cultures all over the world have once in the past mentioned something about giants. It's everywhere.
There was
especially in the Middle East.
Yeah. So going back to the tribes, there was one tribe that was describing, I think they were like around this area of the United States, and they were describing giants as pale skinned and big red hair, which also could be like Vikings. You know what I mean? It's very possible that to them it was these like big humans who were like brolic Scandinavian, so they're taller. And I think they were describing them as like 7 to 11 feet tall, is from what I remember.
Well, when tales travel from so long ago, it's like a
Yeah,
game of
details.
broken telephone.
Yeah, details.
It's like it started off with like they were 6 feet, and then it ends up with they were 100 feet tall.
Yeah. I'm sure details were missed. But the interesting part about these like Native American tribes is that they did excavations in those caves, and they actually found big bones, red hair, a sandal that was like sandals that were like way bigger than regular human feet. Which kind of gave more credibility to this. Again, I don't know if it necessarily means that there were giants in caves or anything like that. But there were like studies and stuff like that that they did. Now the incident in Afghanistan. So what happened was, I mean, this story came out I think in like 2016 or a little earlier. There was a guy that did an interview with the person who did the interview, who was interviewed, claimed to be military, but there's not a lot of proof because they said they signed NDNAs or NDAs. But basically, the story of the thing that happened in Afghanistan, there was a group of military, a unit that went missing, and they ended up sending another military unit to find them. It was in the Rocky Mountains and stuff like that. So as they were looking for somebody, it was a unit of about 15 people searching for this lost unit. And they said that out of a cave emerged a giant. I think it was also like 11 feet. I think giant people think that it's going to be like 20 feet tall or something like that. A spear flew out of the cave and killed one of the Marines. They ended up shooting the giant, killing him. And a helicopter scooped in. They got him out. All of those soldiers were briefed and they were told to sign NDAs. They cannot talk about this. And it was basically used for, I'm assuming, U.S. knowledge testing. So the way one of these people described the giant was also large with red hair, and, you know, using primitive weapons like spear. So then you wonder, how is it possible that, you know, this was in Afghanistan, thousands and thousands of miles away from the United States, where native tribes have similar stories? It's very possible that somebody fabricated this. If if you're somebody who knows of these Native American stories and you are able to fabricate this, you could, right, for the internet fame. Although this person was never named, so it's not like they got anything out of it. That's the one thing that always I go back to. You know, sometimes when people do things like this, they get fame, they write books, they release movies, whatever it is. So you could say there's a monetary gain. With this person got nothing. They're still unnamed because they signed, you know, papers that they couldn't talk about this. And I think it's really weird. So then I start digging more, and I think this happened in 2002, right?
Yeah.
Right, this happened in 2002. So then I start digging a little deeper, and I find a story about how the U.S., or specifically German scientists, found the grave of Gilgamesh. So Gilgamesh, I think he was a Sumerian king.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's the whole, what is that, Gilgamesh epic, the Gilgamesh epic?
The Song of Gilgamesh.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff with Gilgamesh, but I think it's because at some point they took reality and mixed it with mythology, because they said he was like 2/3 human, 1/3 god, or the opposite, 2/3 god, 1/3 human.
Not sure.
Yeah,
We can always search it up.
Yeah. Well, can you actually, just so we could?
Gilgamesh is described as being 2/3 god and 1/3 human.
Right. So Gilgamesh is described as being 2/3 god, 1/3 human. There's that famous stone carving of him holding a lion that everybody refers to, and it looks like he's holding like a cat. I mean, it looks like just like a small cat the way he's holding it. So people refer to him as a giant as well. I think some information leads to him being like 11 to 16 feet tall. So there was this story how German scientists found Gilgamesh's grave. I think this was in Iraq.
Yep.
And what happened afterwards, this is where it gets a little fuzzy because there's no concrete information to confirm this fully. They did excavations, and then everything stops. They halt everything, and what happens next? The U.S. invades Iraq in 2003. Now, some of these stories that came out of that, again, you can't really confirm it because a lot of these things that have to do with government secrecy is a lot of hearsay. Assuming somebody knows some insane information, I think the goal of the government is to obviously silence it, and second of all, make them look crazy. That's just what you would do to prevent any of this information from getting out. So again, not credible fully, but the story goes that the excavation site got completely taken over by the U.S. military, and that being the real reason the U.S. invaded Iraq. It was because Gilgamesh's grave was found, and there were artifacts about longevity in life. Some of the stories about Gilgamesh talk about that he ruled for like 126 years or something like that, which I don't know obviously how true that can be because back then I don't think people even lived that long, but it's definitely creepy, I think. If any of this is true, there's a lot of connections throughout history.
126 years.
Right, 126 years. There's a lot of weird connections throughout history about giants. Now, normally I don't fully believe this. That's just my take because, again, if we're talking about some kind of creatures living off in mountains, everybody has a phone at this point. You know what I mean? This isn't like when Bigfoot... It's kind of similar to all these stories about the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, all of that. Back in the day when the internet was just like getting like good, and all you have are these videos with low quality and stories of people seeing someone in the forest, right? It all sounds great, and you're like, ooh, what if? But now, in 2025, when every single person has a camera, a phone, access to the internet, I think it would be almost impossible for there to be something like Bigfoot, Loch Ness, giants, because we're not talking about a facility operated by the government, right? A lot of people, when they talk about aliens, it always stops at the fact that the government has the aliens or the government did this, and you can't, as a normal person, you can't gain access to it. However, when you look at videos of people spotting something in the sky, there are millions of videos because everybody has a phone. You recording something in the sky and saying, oh my God, that's a UFO, it's almost impossible to, aside from officials from the government coming out and being like, oh, that was a this thing, that was a satellite, that was a this. Aside from that, you can't silence that. And to me, these kind of creatures, mythical creatures, whatever you want to call it, if we're talking about Rocky Mountains in Afghanistan, mountains in the U.S., Gilgamesh, everything like that, I think more people would know about it for sure. More information would have come out with time. It is interesting to think about. But again, we're talking about, like, if you read a lot about these giants, they're all recorded like 11 feet, 16 feet, which is tall. It's really tall. We have NBA players who are like 7.5 foot tall, right? And those are huge people. But is it plausible that at some point there were more people roaming Earth that were taller? Probably. Did they all maybe die out? Maybe. Right? I think it's recorded and studied that really tall people end up having heart problems, knee problems, because you have such a big body to support. It's harder when you get older. When you're smaller, it's not as difficult to, look after yourself. But when you're big and all your organs need way more support, it's harder. So it's very possible back in the day, we medication, all of that. But then I was like, thinking about mythical creatures and stuff like that. Do you think there's, like dragons, I think, is the thing that I always think about. How possible do you think that at some point there was something very similar to it? And I know that they take inspiration from like lizards, dinosaurs, whatever else, But what if there was something flying around that was similar to that?
Well, do you believe in dinosaurs? Let's begin with that.
Oh my God. Hold on, man, because I'm about to answer this, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, this makes sense. I'm out of here." And he's an Arsenal supporter. I'm out of here. I don't know. I'm leaning to yes, dude. Why would you do this to me?
Leaning to
I'm leaning to yes, but I don't know. Only because this is it, man. This is my career going down. No, I think dinosaurs were around. I just don't know the accuracy of everything. When you hear somebody telling you about carbon dating and 65 million years ago, bro, that was such a long time. Look up when the first dinosaur fossil was found. I swear to God, it was like decently recent. Come on.
1676. But that is the first recorded fossil.
Well, okay, and then the first dinosaur to be scientifically described as such was by this guy in 1824. Look, I get it, and I've had people tell me, "Oh, it was because we weren't digging for stuff." Really? You think we weren't digging for stuff? We just decided one day in 1676 to be like, I'm going to dig in my backyard to find a bone? Really?
Well, I feel like archaeology in general evolved.
Oh,
throughout
100%.
hundreds of years.
100%.
I don't think we were as interested in the past as we are now.
There's no way.
I just feel like people weren't trying to actively discover what came before humans and stuff, you know?
How can you say that if we have religious texts that basically serve as our where we came from and what we're striving to like live for? I don't think this idea of that we didn't care where we came from.
Well, I'm not saying that we didn't care where we came from, but
you're saying we didn't actively look for things.
We didn't actively look for things, and also a lot of times I feel like back in the day, you would discover a huge bone, and instead of being like,
it was a giant,
I need to go bring it to a museum or like call people over to go check it out. You're like, oh, it's one of them giants I heard from one of the native tribes.
So what? That's equally cool.
Yeah, but I don't think we like you said, actively dug for stuff like that. Or we did find bones and all of that stuff, but we just didn't look into it as much as we do now. Like, it could have just not been an interest back then.
Dude, what I'm saying is, look up when did dinosaurs exist?
Millions of years ago.
Well, yeah, but this episode turned too crazy. We went from Linkin Park to
66 million.
Yeah, bro. That's a long time. And you're telling me it took 400, 500 years ago is when we started looking for stuff?
Yeah. Why not? I mean, technology improves. What was it? 1678?
6 or whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Technology really improved compared to, I don't know, 1,000 years.
How much technology you need to dig?
A shovel.
Oh,
a good decent shovel.
So?
Well,
I don't know, bro.
Also, like academically wise, I feel like a lot of things changed because new sciences are eventually come to be over time.
What I think is, look, again, I know nothing about this topic. I'm not an archaeologist. I don't really look into it that deep, which is why I don't want to like put this all out there because I don't want somebody to think that I'm trying to influence anybody. My whole thing with dinosaurs is that like 60 million years ago, we're so used to the word million, that it doesn't seem like a lot. That is a really long time. And we're talking about ancient civilizations that probably mention dinosaurs. But again, if they mention, like look this up, ancient civilizations that mention dinosaurs. I'm actually curious about this because if there are ancient civilizations that mention dinosaurs, clearly they cared enough to know what this bone is or like something that roamed the earth millions of years ago. While no ancient civilization explicitly described or depicted dinosaurs as we understand them today, some scholars propose that certain myths and legends, particularly those involving dragons and griffins, may have been. You see what I'm talking? How the fuck? How did this turn to They
It
didn't.
just came back full circle.
They didn't. They didn't talk about dinosaurs existing, but they did talk about dragons and griffins. Griffins,
Griffins.
bro. What? Where are we? What planet? Where are we? What is going on? What is going on? How is this possible? This is my schizo hour, okay? I don't understand what's happening. How is this possible? People are going to think I'm insane, and it's fine. Look, after so many years of like looking into conspiracy theories, I feel like I am kind of crazy. But I blame all of you. Why is this information out there all over the place? Well, so you were saying, okay, let's say dinosaurs 100% proven fact. What does it have to do with dragons?
Well, there's this wonderful huge flying dinosaur called what is it? Pterodactyl?
Pterodactyls, yeah.
Yeah. That could be classified as a dragon without the fire breathing, but the fire breathing could have been added on, the whole game of broken telephone
That's
and
true.
so on.
Yeah.
That could just be think of it like this. Fire is something that's been around for also a very long time.
Yeah, I mean,
And for some people, fire was looked at as something that like saves lives, and for others, it could be connected to just destruction because it burned down their home or something like that. So make
it's a scary thing to
make a gigantic flying lizard that's scary. Make it more scary by giving it the ability to breathe fire.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of myths and stuff like that have origin in something real. Like the whole thing with the unicorn.
Yep.
Is it really that hard to imagine that a horse with a horn existed?
Probably not. There was probably like a mutation where some horse had a weird horn. You know how there are people who have horns growing out of their head because of some like bone dysfunction or something?
Well, people also do that on purpose.
I know people do that on purpose, but I'm talking about like actual like instances where that happens. I don't think, but see, like a horned horse is not as insane as a flying lizard that breathes fire. That's fine. Listen.
Also, I don't know if you've seen, but recently a lot of new like studies came out about dinosaurs, and a lot of archaeologists are actually denying how we show dinosaurs currently, because right now all they're doing is they're taking like the bone structure, and then they're just putting skin over it, and every single dinosaur just looks like a lizard.
And you're talking about the feathers?
The feathers,
so
also the muscle mass. Because like the larger it is, the more muscle or like fat tissue it will have. But
This
instead of
yeah,
they just wrap it.
100%, dude. This is my problem with things like dinosaurs, and I know somebody's like gonna do a backflip over this because it sounds so stupid, but hear me out. I remember when I was in school, I had textbooks where we were talking about ancient civilizations like Egyptians. And the textbooks showed slaves moving those blocks to build the pyramids. Now, in 2025, we still can't 100% confirm how those pyramids were built. When I was a kid, we had textbooks that showed dinosaurs, lizards, T-Rexes, classic. Then years go by, and it turns out, and you start reading articles, turns out, they had feathers, which I understand. Like, we go forward, technology changes, new developments. But that's what I'm saying is even now, it's so difficult to tell exactly what was going on 65 million years ago. You will find bones. And don't forget, archaeology, this is what a lot of people don't understand. When they think of archaeology, they think of Indiana Jones. They think of, I'm this guy doing this great research. I'm digging over here and trying to find bones and shit like that. Or like ancient civilization stuff. That's not at all how it happens. There's a lot of bureaucracy that goes on with archaeology. There's a lot of things you have to go through to even get access to those points. Who owns all that stuff that you find? What do they do with it? The Smithsonian has a lot of things in their archives that they don't want to release to the public for many reasons. Okay, so there's a lot of political things that go on with archaeology that a lot of people don't talk about or understand. And that's all I'm saying. Like, if I could, in a perfect world, you give somebody the funds and the tools to do this because they will discover something, education purposes. That's not what always happens. And that's my entire point. I'm not saying that dinosaurs didn't exist. What I'm saying is that to this day, we still have new developments, and it always changes to some extent. And that's all I'm saying.
A lot of times, these like archaeological expeditions, from what I know, and I could be wrong, they are funded by governments.
Yep.
And how much money would a government realistically want to give someone if they can't make any money off of this?
Exactly. How much money, and then say they find something. Well, are you gonna say you find something crazy? Say you find proof of like some religious thing. You think they're gonna just let you just willy-nilly Instagram it? No. So, how much time we got?
A decent amount.
I'm gonna round it up. I want to end this on a good note. And I saw that Scooby-Doo, the movie came out. Look it up. I think 23 years ago. So all my 2000s babies. The movie Scooby-Doo 1, I think, came out in 2002. So it's been 23 years. What old? Get used to it. And this movie has one of the most horrifying scenes I've ever seen as a kid. Okay? Go to YouTube and type in Scooby-Doo 2002 movie. And then type in Mary Jane mask. Right there, second one. So let me give a backstory while this loads and just pause it when it does. So in the movie, Scooby-Doo, Shaggy, the gang, they all go to Spooky Island, where there's a lot of disappearances, and there's also, I think the whole plot was that these kids going to the island, they're leaving and they're different. Something's weird. Something weird's going on. Shaggy meets this girl called Mary Jane. You know what I mean? Just a little subtle cush. And, she becomes part of the entourage as Shaggy, Scooby try to save Velma, Daphne, Fred, and just whatever's going on the island. Now, there's a scene where they are all driving. I think they're like motorcycles or like scooters or something. I don't remember. And Mary Jane gets hit with like a stick on her face. Like, play it. It's the most horrifying thing. Skip it a little bit. Oh, it's quad bikes. Here we go. So Scooby, they're all driving out. Scooby and Shaggy, and I think they're about to run into Mary Jane. Right here. He's about to almost run her over. So she's like, I saw my friend. There's something wrong with them. He's like, get on. And now it's three of them running away from these weird, zombie-like people. Yeah. So they're on the quad bikes. They're driving around. Now watch this. They're like, yay, we got away. Everything's good. Scooby looks at Mary Jane. He said, duck. Dude, look at that. Dude, she got slapped by a stick or something, and she had to rearrange her face. Dude, I was like 6 looking at that. Not good. This was so messed up. Is that what you expected? What did you think?
What do you mean what I expected? I knew exactly what.
Oh, you saw this before?
Of course. I saw it like a couple times.
Oh, man, I'm over here thinking I'm enlightening people. Anyway, man, this is a good podcast. I enjoyed this. To all the Linkin Park fans, I love and hate you at the same time. I feel like we have a common enemy, which is ourselves, and that's the beauty of the world. Sometimes you are your best friend and you are your own worst enemy. Everybody else, it's Father's Day. How could we forget? Please. Shout out to all the dadas out there. Dada! Much love to your mothers and sisters and brothers. Take care of each other in this crazy world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. please. Barely keeping the lights on in the studio. Yes. So thank you so much for tuning in for another week, and hopefully next week will be something different, which I don't know why it would, but maybe.
Something to look forward to.
Something in the way. Ooh. Almost threw up. I just tried to burp into the mic, almost threw up.
When he talks loud, got success enchanted. Skyscrapers tall, ambition never slanted. Subway beats, Rhythm City granite. From Brooklyn to Bronx, boroughs never sleep. Queensbridge vibes, cash flow in the sweep. Harlem Nights with a culture deep. Statue of dreams in the city we keep. Y'all gotta get it, we were born ready. Ain't nothing to it, we was born steady. Green in our veins, hustle in the city. New York crew, never show pity. Cyborg.
Pretty much born into Scientology. He went from everybody's really cool dad to now they're like weird uncle. And then when I tell that to people, they're like, what? I started getting into this rabbit hole. I know I kind of hit you with this today about giants. Described these huge creatures in the mountains. The US military encountered a giant. It's very possible that somebody fabricated this, a story about how the US, or specifically German scientists, found the grave of Gilgamesh. I think it would be almost impossible for there to be something like Bigfoot, Loch Ness.
Well, do you believe in dinosaurs?